Hi folks, welcome to the Prepared Homestead. This is Travis. Thank you all for stopping by to watch. It is quite cold here and probably the same way where you're at. I think it's somewhere in the neighborhood of 12 to 13 degrees out, and it's going to get much colder over the next few days. I think here the coldest temperature they're talking about is probably Saturday overnight, in the negatives. -5, -10 degrees. So we've done everything we can to get ready and to get our animals ready, which is something that you should take very seriously, because when you're talking about these kind of temperatures, a lot of things can happen. Pipes can freeze, animals can die. So you have to take extra precautions, especially when you have animals in your care. For people, you can huddle up inside and make do getting through a tough time. But, as homesteaders and neo-pioneers, you have responsibility for animals. And we have others on the property, and we've done everything we can, and I believe we're going to be good. A little tip, this isn't about the video today, but I thought I'd go ahead and give a little tip for dealing with this kind of cold weather in your home. A lot of you may be new to heating your home with wood, which is a very common way to heat your home for homesteaders. And let me just remind you that you should, especially when it's cold like this, try as best you can is to bring in about a couple to 3 days worth of firewood into your home, constantly, so that you have at least 2 or 3 days in your home to burn. Now, one reason is you don't have to go out as often. I mean, when it gets cold, you just don't want to go out and get wood. So it's in the house and it's good. But there's a couple other reasons. Number one, no matter how well you take care of your firewood, it's going to have a little bit of dampness to it, and bringing it in the warmth and everything, it kind of helps dry it out. But then when it starts getting really, really cold, if your wood is a little green or if it has any moisture in it, that wood will freeze like a solid block of ice, and it becomes quite difficult. So if you take one straight from outside and bring it in and put it into your stove, it's got to thaw out, and it's got to burn off the moisture before it can really start burning and producing heat in your oven, your stove. And then that process of thawing it out and of burning off or steaming off the moisture, it's actually going to cause the temperature in your stove to drop. And when you're really fighting against, sub-zero temperatures, it makes a difference. So my advice is, most of you guys that's been doing this for years, you already know this, but if you're new to it, bring in 2 or 3 days worth of wood. Yeah, it's going to make a mess, but I figure deal with it, because it's better to have a mess and be warmer than to, the other. All right. I want to talk some more about, because I'm very passionate about this, and I always have been, about how we, as whatever you want to call yourself, we need to start thinking differently. We need to realize that we live in a different world than what we once lived in. Whether you like it or not, we are in a reset. We are in a new age. We are in a new reality, a new era, whatever you want to call it. It's a fact, okay? And there's nothing you're going to do, or I'm going to do, or anyone can do to change that. It's happened, okay? It's been happening for a long time. And I think over the last year, what has changed really is that kind of the blinders have been taken off of most people's eyes. We now realize that it is true. It's not just some conspiracy theory that a lot of people thought was happening because of certain indicators. It's pretty much set in stone, and most people now are becoming aware to the fact, whether they're on the left, the right, the middle, or somewhere out in the, wherever, people are starting to realize that it is happening. Sorry, my screen just went whited out. I got to take my, there we go. It struggles with all this snow, this cheap camera. Anyways, so we really have to do our best to adapt to that. And I believe, and not just to adapt like they want us to adapt, but to adapt in a way that increases our survivability rate, that increases, that retains our freedom and increases the odds that we will make it through this and still retain our traditional values and our individual liberties. Because the other way to adapt is to just, fall in line with all their new changes and their new ideals and their new beliefs and so on and so forth. And we've gone into many of those in the past. So I really push for, obviously, prepping, to be prepared, to be self-sufficient, though, which is kind of, I feel like, the next level above. Because you can be prepared, and to me, preparedness gets you prepared for, an immediate event that may happen and may only last just a short amount of time. But being self-sufficient is kind of taking it to the next level. It's not just that you're prepared for something to happen. It's that you live your life in a way that you can survive, thrive, and continue to maintain, your beliefs and your way of life because of how you live. And really being sustainable in today's world is really, I feel, the best and probably the only way to make it through what we are experiencing and retain these values and beliefs. And I use the word homesteading, self-sufficiency. A term that I'm seeing used more and more, and it's starting to grow on me, is neo-pioneer. Hold on, my little ram over here, he's eyeballing me. He's not mean, but he's young and pretty rambunctious, hence the term. So he's wanting his head scratched now, but he may try to ram me. So we'll keep an eye on him. He's now licking the camera stand, so I'll hold on to it. The joys of dealing with animals. We have to, got me off track here. I think I won't edit this out. We have to look at these terms, neo-pioneer, homesteading, whatever it is, whatever you want to call it, and realize that this is a lifestyle that can protect our way of life and protect our families. And it's why I push for living out like this. You all should know, if you've watched me for any length of time, that I feel the Ozarks is one of the best places. It's not the only, but it's definitely one of the best places to live this lifestyle, which is where we live. But there are other places to live. But it's more than just prepping. It's learning to adapt and to take on what I think more old-fashioned ways, because the old-fashioned ways had to be sustainable because there wasn't an infrastructure in place to sustain a lot of these modern ways. And I'm talking about our food systems, power supply, electricity, fuel for gasoline, cars, whatever it is. And so learning to adapt and to develop and to learn these older ways, it's going to make us more sustainable. And one of the big ones that I talk about a lot is food, and that's extremely important. Food is one of the top most important things, aside from your mind and your spirituality, your heart, your belief system. I'm talking about physical, tangible things, because they're going to control that. It's becoming weaker, more fragile. There's more kinks in the system. And that's also something that we can control ourselves. So I've always tried to suggest looking at food in two different ways, because this is extremely important. Remember, food is important. Don't forget. Number one, you have your preps. And that's where the common prepper mentality, term, whatever, comes into play. This is food that you put away. Okay? I suggest working towards a goal of at least 2 years. 2 years of food. If you can do three, do 3, but at least 2 years of food. Majority of this food is going to be food that you eat normally. You're just stocking up on it. You want to also include, like dry foods that store for a long period of time, especially like your grains, corn, wheat, oats, rice, beans, things like that you can store away in buckets or however you want to store them. One item that you can put in, it's not required, and that's your freeze-dried food. Freeze-dried food is where you have to buy it. It's much more expensive. I sell it through My Patriot Supply. So here's a little plug. If you're interested in any, there's a link below. I wouldn't put that as the highest priority, though, and I wouldn't put all your money into that. I think it's good to have a little bit of that, maybe 10 to 20% of your overall food supply in that, because it lasts a very long time and it's extremely easy to put together, to cook. It's also a lot more expensive than just buying beans and rice, but it's very handy to have on in a true extreme emergency, a bad natural disaster, or if you're on the run or whatever. But try to have a goal of 2 years of food. That's the preparedness side of it. The homesteading side, the neo-pioneer, which I'm growing. I know it's not a new term, but I think, just to pause for a minute here, I think with all the things going on, and I'll make another video of this at a later time, that there is a new revolution. I already said just a minute ago that this is a new era, whether we like it or not, and we are kind of the new revolutionaries in our own sense. And neo-pioneer is starting to warm up to me as a term. But anyways, don't get so caught up on terms. The homesteading side is to be really sustainable. You need the prep side that gets you going. So if everything collapsed today, and you're living on a homestead like this, you have 2 years supply. That 2 years supply of food is to give you a little bit of a buffer zone to get this property up to the point that it will 100% sustain you. We produce food on this property, but it doesn't 100% sustain us. And so you need at least a couple of seasons of growing and raising animals to get it to the point that it really can sustain you. And that's really, in my mind, what that 2 year of a food supply is for. So then we switch over to the homesteading, and that's where you learn your skills of how to grow food, skills of how to, because growing food is really an art form. I mean, there's science and art to it. You just don't go out there and stick a seed in the ground and all of a sudden you're, harvesting tomatoes. There's an art and some science to it. You need to learn that and get good at it. Then you need to learn how to preserve it. So there's skill there. You need to learn how to take care of animals. You need to learn how to butcher and process the animals, preserve that food that you get from the animals, take care of them, chickens, coop, all that kind of stuff. And then you also need the things to do that, tools, certain equipment for preservation of the food. And then you need to have stuff on hand, and something that gets talked about a lot. Sometimes I just forget to mention it, but I'm going to today, is seeds. Seeds are very, very important. You need to get to where you're saving your own seeds, but it doesn't hurt to be able to get them. I want to plug a company. I'm not making anything off of this. I am just someone that purchases from them, and I like it. Let me see if I can get this up here close enough. Strictly medicinal seeds. Now, I know we're talking about food right now, and they do have vegetable seeds, but the majority of this catalog, the products, are more medicinal, which is also really important, and I talk about that often, more so on my Patreon page. Sorry, my guinea hens over here are being really loud. But I really like this company a lot. I'm just saying it's something I like if you're interested in getting their catalog. It just came in the mail. Let me see, is there a website? Here we go. There's their website if it focuses in. All right, they have probably the widest variety of medicinal seeds, herbal medicinal plants that I have ever seen in my life. And it's a small family-owned, family-run company, and I like them. Again, I'm not making any money promoting this, and you don't have to buy from them. But get to where you are able, or have a goal to where you're able to kind of take care of yourself. And I think that's the way. And we do this not just with food. I think food's an easy one to start off on. Really, I think it's the easiest. But there are other aspects of our lives that we need to become, the neo-pioneers, self-sufficient, homestead, whatever it is on. But like I said, we are certainly living in a new era. It's a new age, a new reset, whatever you want to call it. And we don't know where this is heading. I mean, is our civilization collapsing and we're going to revert back into history to where it's more like the Middle Ages kind of life? Or are we looking at this great jump in, I hate to use the word evolution. I don't mean it in a Darwin sense, but this almost evolutionary jump where our society rapidly evolves into this, much more advanced technology. That's what they're wanting. That's what they're pushing for. Will it happen? Will it, backfire and we go backwards? Who knows? But our society is definitely going through some rapid changes right now. And we're seeing that in our culture. We're seeing that in what's now acceptable and what's, considered okay and considered normal. Things that just a few years ago people would have said, that's just insanity, okay? But no one thinks that way. No one believes that way. And now, well, it's normal. And they're teaching it to our children and pushing it in our face and shoving it down our throat. But I'll try not to get on that soapbox. So I think that our only way to physically combat this, okay? I mean, you can resist it through actual physical resistance. When I'm talking about combating, like literal combat, that may be down the road. That's a subject for later video, I guess. But in a physical sense, I think the best way that we can survive this, combat this, resist this, retain our belief systems, protecting our family, the integrity of our own families, is to embrace this self-sufficient, neo-pioneer, homesteading lifestyle in the best way that you possibly can, to retain that. The main thing that I've been talking about a lot lately, I mentioned it a lot, get your house in order. Yes, that is a scriptural reference, so there's certainly a spiritual meaning behind that, but there's also a physical meaning behind that. And doing the things that we're doing, and certainly we're not doing it perfectly. We make mistakes. I've been doing this for years, but just about every day I make a mistake out here. I do something stupid. That's just the life, but we're learning and we're becoming more and more, self-sufficient, more and more on our own, more and more closer and closer to that point that if we had to, we could close off our borders and live here pretty sustainable if that's what we're forced to do. So again, my message today is to work towards that. Find your own goals. I can't tell you how to do it all because everyone's life's different. Your situation, where you live, what you live on. Maybe you're in an apartment, a suburbs, or out like this, or on an island somewhere in the desert. Who knows? But you have to evaluate your life. Don't get so caught up and so hyper-focused on what's going on in the news, what's going on in politics, what they're trying to do to us. We certainly need to be aware of it. But I think sometimes it's like a drug. It becomes very addictive. And that's all we do, and that's all we focus on. And sometimes it brings us down. And we forget that we have to put action. We have to do things to get ready. We can't just get ready by paying attention to what they're doing. We have to at times have a reaction to that and be proactive in getting ourselves prepared, our homes prepared, our homes in order, our families ready for this radically changing and rapidly changing world that we live in, which is why, again, I just feel like I'm beating it into people's heads, becoming more sustainable and embracing a lifestyle that can be simple, can be more work, can be a little bit more harsh, You know, no one wants to be getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning when it's 10 degrees or 10 below zero and running out and take care of animals or whatever, but have to do that sometimes. You know, just a few weeks ago, there's a creek back here and had an animal get in the creek, and it's cold as can be, and I had to jump in that creek and get him out of there. Didn't want to do that, but you have to sometimes. I know some of you'd rather be sitting in front of a comfortable on a comfortable chair in front of a TV, but doing this, we have the fate of our own lives much more in our hands than the rest of the world. And to me, I believe that and I feel much more secure knowing that my survivability and my family's survivability rests in my hands and in the Father's hands up above, and not in, the system's hands. All right, folks, I hope you got it all, and kind of that I didn't stray off track too much. I tend to do that. I understand and apologize. But anyways, thank you all for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.